Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're going deep into the world of AI in financial services. But we're going to go a little deeper than the hype. We're going to look at the reality and some of the challenges.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz around AI and how it's going to completely transform everything.
Right.
But we've got this report here that really digs into the nitty-gritty, and it's kind of surprising, actually. The limitations that these systems are facing are pretty big.
Well, and it's kind of a paradox when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
You hear all this talk about AI agents revolutionizing the industry,
Yeah.
becoming these like autonomous powerhouses.
Right.
But then in reality, they're often stuck. They're dealing with the very systems they were supposed to replace.
Exactly. It's like, it's not that AI is bad or anything. It's more about recognizing that it can only do so much when you put it into the real world of finance.
It's messy out there.
Yeah, very messy. And one of the biggest bottlenecks we see over and over again is legacy infrastructure.
Oh, the legacy systems? This report actually has a crazy stat about that. Something like 55% of banks say that their existing core systems are the biggest thing holding them back from reaching their digital transformation goals.
Wow. 55%? That's huge.
It's almost like they're trying to run, I don't know, the latest AI algorithms on a computer from the 80s.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, think about it. A lot of these core banking systems, they were built decades ago.
Right.
Like way before anyone was even thinking about AI-driven transactions. So now you've got powerful AI agents, but they're trying to talk to these ancient systems that were never designed to handle that kind of speed and volume of data.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what does that actually look like in practice? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's take payment processing, for example. I mean, a lot of institutions, they still rely on those legacy networks, like SWIFT,
Right.
which operate on these fixed schedules, and it can take days to clear transactions.
Oh, wow.
So even if you have this amazing AI analyzing the data, you're still stuck waiting for the underlying infrastructure to catch up.
It's hard to believe that in a world where we're used to everything happening instantly.
I know, right?
Some of these fundamental financial processors are still, well, they're operating at a snail's pace.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you think with all this talk about AI,
Yeah.
you'd think like compliance would be a no-brainer area for AI to just take over.
Totally. All that data analysis
Exactly.
seems perfect for AI.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is there's still a ton of human involvement in compliance. Like a surprising amount, something like 75% of firms, they still rely mainly on manual risk assessments to fight financial crime.
Wow, really? Why is that? I mean, the report dives into that a bit, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like these AI agents are often stuck relying on, I don't know, external data sources for things like sanctions lists. And those sources can be really outdated.
Yeah, they can be. And full of errors, too.
Right, exactly.
I mean, think about the OFAC list, the Office of Foreign Assets Control. These lists, they change constantly, and they're not always accurate. So even if an AI agent can process all that information super fast, it still needs a human to look it over, interpret the context, make judgments, and just make sure everything's compliant with these regulations, that they're complex and they change all the time.
It's kind of like having, I don't know, like a brilliant research assistant who can gather mountains of information in seconds.
No.
But then you still got to go back and double check everything they found to make sure it's actually accurate and relevant before you make any decisions.
That's a great way to put it. And that need for human oversight, it only gets more obvious when you start to look at how complicated the global financial system really is.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of a tangled web, isn't it?
It is.
You've got different countries, different banks, regulations, payment standards, all interacting in different ways.
Yeah, it's a mess. The report actually points out that on average, there are 3 or more intermediaries involved in a typical cross-border payment.
Seriously. 3 or more.
At least 3. It's a lot for any system to handle, let alone one that's supposed to be working autonomously.
I mean, are these AI agents just trying to navigate a financial Tower of Babel or something, where the rules are constantly changing?
Pretty much. It's a tough job.
It sounds like it. But this also raises another question. What happens when these super fast AI agents are constantly stuck waiting for these slower human-run processes to catch up?
Yeah.
What are the risks there?
That's a great question, and one we should definitely talk more about. The implications are, well, they could be pretty big.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground already. Maybe we need to take a little breather here before we dive into the really scary stuff.
A breather sounds good.
Yeah.
A breather's good. It's a lot to take in.
Okay. Deep breaths, everyone. All right, we were talking about how even though these AI agents have all this potential, they're facing some serious limitations in the real world.
Yeah.
But what happens when we zoom out a little? Look at the bigger picture. What happens if everyone in finance starts using these AI tools?
Well, that's when you start to see this thing called diminishing returns. If everyone's got access to the same AI insights and capabilities, those insights, they become less valuable. And the potential for, any kind of competitive edge, it starts to disappear.
So it's like if everyone has the same secret weapon,
Mm-hmm.
it's not really a secret anymore.
Exactly. And relying on these, standardized AI solutions, it can actually create a kind of a dangerous uniformity in the financial world. It's like everyone's building their defenses using the same blueprint.
So then a really smart criminal could just figure out how to exploit that one blueprint, and then they could potentially get into everyone's systems.
Potentially, yeah. It's not a good thought. And it also creates these systemic blind spots.
Huh.
Like, imagine if every bank was using the same AI model for KYC verification, for example.
Okay.
They might all miss a new kind of shell company structure that's outside the parameters that they all share.
But doesn't AI learn and adapt?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't it be able to figure out these new threats eventually?
Well, yeah, AI can definitely adapt, but it can only learn from the data that we give it.
Right.
So if the data is biased or incomplete or just doesn't include the latest types of fraud, then the AI, it's going to learn the wrong things.
Right.
And if everyone's using the same limited data sets, those flaws, they get replicated across the whole system.
So is that interconnectedness thing again?
Exactly. One weak link can affect the whole chain.
This is making me nervous.
Yeah.
But there's another risk that I'm actually even more worried about. Skill atrophy.
Oh, yeah. Big one.
As we get more and more reliant on these AI systems, are we losing our own ability to analyze and assess financial risks?
Yeah, that's a very real concern. I mean, if humans start to depend too much on these AI-generated risk assessments, they might lose those critical thinking skills, and just the plain old expertise that you need to spot these complex financial crime patterns.
It's like if you use GPS all the time,
Yeah.
you forget how to read a map. What happens if your GPS breaks or you're somewhere without a signal?
You're in trouble.
Yeah. So it seems like this whole AI thing is kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, there's this incredible potential for efficiency and innovation.
Right.
But then on the other hand, we've got all these new risks and dependencies that we need to be really careful about.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet. And maybe in our rush to adopt AI everywhere, we've forgotten about some other simpler solutions that might actually be more effective.
You mean like those traditional automation tools, like scripts, algorithms, rule-based logic, that kind of thing?
Exactly. They might not be as flashy as AI, but they can be really efficient, especially for those repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're cheaper and easier to implement than some big, complicated AI system.
So it's not really about AI versus traditional automation. It's about picking the right tool for the job.
Yeah, I like that. Choosing the right tool. It's about being smart about how we implement these technologies and finding a good balance.
I like that, a balanced approach. It's not about just jumping on the AI bandwagon because it's the trendy thing to do. It's about being strategic and using the right tools for the right tasks.
Yeah.
But hold on a second, before we get too excited about all this, let's not forget about those legacy systems.
Oh, right.
Even if we have the best tools in the world, it's not going to matter much if our infrastructure is stuck in the past.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got to modernize those systems. It's not just about having the latest AI. It's about having a good a solid foundation for any technology to be able to work.
Right.
But it's also about more than just the technology itself.
What do you mean?
Well, we also need to focus on the people. We need a workforce that understands technology and finance.
So we need people who get both the power of AI and the limitations. People who know how to use it, but who can still think for themselves.
Yeah. Exactly. We need people who can bridge that gap between the technical side and the financial side, people who can see the big picture. This brings up some really important questions about the future of AI in finance and how we can make sure that it's developed responsibly and ethically.
Okay. I am definitely ready to tackle those big questions. Let's talk about what the future holds for AI in finance. All right, so we talked about the limits of these AI agents, the potential risks if everyone starts using them, and the need for balance, between AI and those more traditional approaches to automation in finance. But what's next? What does the future hold for AI in financial services?
Well, it's clear that AI agents have the potential to really change a lot of things in finance. Payments, lending, compliance, risk management, you name it.
Yeah.
But as we've been discussing, their success depends on us addressing those challenges.
Right, modernizing those old legacy systems,
Yeah.
making sure that adopting AI doesn't accidentally make the whole financial system more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then there's the human factor, too. How do we make sure people don't become so reliant on AI that they lose those essential decision-making skills?
That is the big question, isn't it? Finding that right balance between human expertise and AI capabilities, that's what we need to figure out. We need to stop thinking of AI as trying to replace human intelligence because it's not about that. It's about seeing AI as a tool that can make our abilities even better.
It's like having, I don't know, like a super smart co-pilot who can
Yeah.
help you navigate all the complexities of the financial world, but ultimately we're still the pilots in command.
I like that. A co-pilot. And just like a pilot needs constant training and skill development, so do people who work in finance in this age of AI. We need to invest in education and training that gives people the knowledge and skills to not just use these technologies, but to really understand them, how they work, their limits, and how to manage them well.
So it's about giving people the power to work with AI,
Yeah.
not be replaced by it. It's about creating a future where humans and AI are working together to build a financial system that's more efficient, more resilient, and honestly, a more responsible one, too.
I couldn't agree more. The future of AI in finance isn't about some scary world where machines have taken over. It's about humans and machines working side by side.
Now, that's a future I can get behind.
Okay.
So for everyone listening out there, here's our final takeaway for today. AI agents have incredible potential, but they're not a magic solution. If you want to succeed in finance and really in any field, you have to understand the limits of technology.
Yeah.
You got to keep developing human expertise, and you need to constantly adapt because the world is changing all the time.
And maybe even more importantly, it's about remembering that technology is just a tool. And any tool can be used in good ways or bad ways. The choices that we make today, they're going to shape the financial world of tomorrow.
So as you keep exploring the world of AI and what it means for finance, we want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
How can you contribute to building a future where AI is used ethically, responsibly, and benefits everyone?
Keep asking those tough questions. Stay curious and never stop learning.
The deep dive continues. And on that note, we'll see you next time, fellow explorers.